Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Supraland. Supraland is a first-person Metroidvania with a heavy emphasis on exploration and puzzles. A combat mechanic exists. You play as a tiny red stick figure who has been summoned, yes, summoned by His and Her Majesty to find out why the village suddenly doesn't have any water anymore. So you crawl down a well into a sewer system to find out what's wrong. Down here is where your tutorial takes place, and I gotta say it's well made. The explanations pop up when they need to, they're to the point, not intrusive, and don't overstay their welcome, and I would really like other developers to take a note of that. Anyway, at the end of the sewer system you find the culprit. Some blue stick figure punks shut down your water pipe. But unfortunately you can't reach them to give him a beating. So the only thing you can do is go back and report to the king, who sends you, along with the queen, to a journey to Blueville to have a chat about that stunt they pulled. By the way, when I say journey to Blueville, I mean it. Check this out. Excuse for a Games Island is 5.5 kilometers squared. Skyrim's world is 37 kilometers squared. And Supraland? 9 meters squared. But it feels like a complete journey because you control a super tiny stick figure that lives in a literal sandbox. Maker of this world is some kid in a backyard who was probably bored out of his mind. You can even see him in the distance.
I am your god. You will please your god.
My assumption is he threw everything he found down into the sandbox. You will see multiple screwdrivers, loose pipes, lots of Lego blocks, a handsaw, and cigarette butts? And honestly, the presentation is one of the reasons why I gave this game a shot. Because you are so tiny, everything else looks massive in comparison. I felt like I was in the world of giants, which is exclusively inhabited by very cute small people. Climbing a simple stool to take out some ranged attackers becomes this huge undertaking. But you can't deny the awesome view you have once you are up there. Also, the developers put a blur effect on your view. Everything that is a certain distance away seems kinda out of focus, which gives the world more depth. Now, as you can see by the presentation, the enemies and the dialogue between the villagers... yeah, the game doesn't take itself very seriously. It knows it's a fun game, and as such it has no need for complicated backstory or complex characters. And it drives this point home by featuring references. So many references. One session I was jumping around looking for treasure when I break a roof and find a house that is filled with blue crystals that are produced by some bearded guy in a yellow suit. At other times you might jump around a cave and see a mighty warrior lying on the floor. You can take a souvenir if you want to. By the way, do you still wonder about how plumbuses are made? Yeah, me too. I don't think Mr. Miracle has a straight answer from me either. Almost every spot you see is reachable if you know how, but in order to get there and witness these cameos or find more treasure, you either need the right equipment, some brainpower, or both. Which brings me to the gameplay. In true Metroidvania fashion, the game is divided into different sections, and to unlock a new section, you always need a piece of gear you can find in your current section. If I want to continue my way to Blueville, I need to open up this door, which is connected to this red glowing sensor. And I don't have anything to reach or activate it, so the only thing I can do is take a detour and explore a sub-area. The game does a very good job in guiding you to the respectable MacGuffin that lets you open the door. Usually there is a post with a colored crystal around. Just follow the post and you will be directed to the area where the MacGuffin is. Alright, so the red crystal looms over me and I guess I have to climb this monstrosity to get it. Yeah, if climbing was the only thing. The whole tower is one big puzzle that requires me to use everything I have and everything I know about the game world so far to actually reach the top. And this is where Supraland deviates a bit from the standard Metroidvania. Usually you go around and there's the occasional puzzle to solve, but most of the time you will be confronted with monsters you have to fight. There are also some light RPG elements here and there. Monsters can drop items, blah 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 blah. In Supraland, progress is made by solving puzzles. And there's no XP system. I know, that sounds tiring on paper, but here this is actually a lot of fun. And I think a big part of that is because the puzzles are built on 3 components. As soon as you get a new item, you learn what you can do with it in a rather safe environment, and then it gets more complicated. The first item I got was the Force Cube. With it, I can create a block I can jump on to reach higher places. So far so good. There's even a dude right here that tells me, "Hey dummy, use the block right here." And at the end of it, I find some gold coins as my reward. Nice. Second, if you look closely, then you will notice that everything is color-coded for your convenience. See, I know there's a treasure chest behind that door, but it closes up every time I come close. Man, if I only had something to keep the door open, and why are there purple blocks on the floor right here? Aha, stupid door, you are no match for my force cube. So as a player, you learn two things right here. You can jump higher with the cube, and you can use it as a real object in the world. As soon as you mastered those steps, the game trusts you enough to think in an abstract way, aka it doesn't chew out everything for you anymore. Let's have a look at this seesaw right here. I need to go up the hill, and I could easily do it if I had a counterweight that would keep the seesaw in check. You already know where this is going, Force Cube to the rescue. But what's even cooler is that every piece of gear is not just used for one specific thing. The game is super creative when it comes to making puzzles interesting and understandable. And third, there's always a reward at the end to cement what you learned so far. Combine this with environmental items like sponges, batteries, crystals, and even supercharged insects, which can all be given different colors for different effects, and you get very interesting and engaging puzzles. But back to the tower. I managed to climb it, and my reward is the mighty MacGuffin. And it shoots red balls of light. So the solution is obvious. Go back to the main road, shoot the sensor, proceed. And 2 minutes later, I need to find the blue crystal and a blue MacGuffin. Understood. Or, since I have a brand new ability, I could check out my previous area and see what I can do there now. Another Metroidvania element Supraland employs is backtracking for additional treasure. Honestly, go in any direction you want, you will find a treasure chest there that will make you incrementally stronger. Oh, what's this? Extra damage for my sword? Nice! More max health so I don't croak? I'm sorry, a health bar? From a gameplay point of view, this is incredibly effective. Those little rewards here and there actually encourage you to get out and explore every nook and cranny of the world. And because there's literally treasure everywhere, it never gets boring. Also, you are given a treasure locator near the endgame, and it beeps every time you are near a chest. But all the key items are given to you along the way. You never ever have to backtrack. Also, backtracking is made easy for you. Whenever you clear an area, you have the option to activate a jump pad that lets you fly into a previously visited space. So crisscrossing all over the place is no problem at all. You can also get some upgrades in a shop. Shops can be found in specific places in Supraland. They accept the coins you get from defeating enemies, and their upgrades are also well worth the coin. But if you want even better power-ups, then it's back to exploring again. Some shops accept colored barrels, which in turn unlocks new stuff the vendor has under the counter, so to speak. And these upgrades are massive. But of course, you still need to grind some fights until you can actually afford the item. And here's where my criticism starts. The fights themselves are very much on the easy side. You will be pitted against a lot of cutesy skeletons in different varieties. We have the usual, grunts, warriors with shields, the mage, bow and arrow skeletons, and if I count the occasional rock monster, the roster's complete. I know that fighting is not the main focus of the game, and from a technical standpoint there's nothing wrong with it. But it gets a little boring after a while. All you need to do is bonk them over the head a few times and not get hit yourself. Or better yet, go pew pew a few times and the problem's solved. Not to say that it's not fun to go pew, on the contrary. Your powered up weapons do a massive amount of damage, and properly used you can clear out whole waves of enemies in an instant. My biggest gripe is not that the fights are easy, it's that I need to fight almost constantly whenever I re-enter an area because the enemies respawn. On the one hand, that's good because I can get a lot of coins, but on the other it gets tedious because I've been out here before and I just want to explore some more, and that stupid grunt is coming out of nowhere and ruins my jam. Lucky for me, there is a way to get rid of this problem as well. There are exactly 5 optional power-ups in the game that imbue your weapons with the ability to get rid of the tombstones you find in the world. Destroying those gets rid of the monsters, forever, so you can explore in peace. I'm sorry to say this, but the enemies, with the exception of the only boss fight in the game and a side event that lets you fight waves after waves of bones, which is a lot of fun, seems more like a filler tactic to me. Yeah, I do get coins for fighting so I can buy new stuff, but in contrast to the 2 events I just listed, fighting just seems to be in the game to keep the player occupied when there's nothing to do at the moment. And as I thought about that, I was able to figure out why I laid off Supraland for a while. As awesome as the puzzles are, this is basically all the game is really about. It's puzzle after puzzle after puzzle. In this slide, I can compare Supraland with Portal. That game was also exclusively puzzle-based, but it does two very vital things differently. First of all, Portal doesn't have any downtime on the puzzles. You know exactly what you're here for. You complete one level and then it's right on to the next. The pacing in Portal is tighter than in Supraland because of its level design. Portal is pure puzzle action on a string. Supraland, on the other hand, is a sandbox puzzler, so of course there will be some downtime that needs to be filled. And the game's answer to that is a combat mechanic which is sort of there. Portal also has GLaDOS and later Wheatley and the companion cube and Cake. So while you were going through these puzzles, you, as a player, started to establish a relationship with Chell, your main character, and GLaDOS because, let's be honest, she was the only, but awesome form of social interactivity you had.
Well done. Here come the test results. You are a horrible person. That's what it says. A horrible person. We weren't even testing for that.
In Supraland, the only thing that comes close to this is your blue antagonist who is trying to stop you from making progress by blocking all the doors to Blueville in the first place. And yes, later on you bust him out of a threatening situation and bring him back home and he says thank you, but there's no real interaction between you and the rest of the world. It's always like this. Here's your problem, now solve it, hero. Which is fine. Supraland doesn't need a strong backstory here. Hell, given the comedic tone of the game, I think that would even hurt the game's presentation. But what could help the game immensely is giving the players something to do besides puzzling and, dare I say, combat for the sake of combat. More combat events, for example, would be extremely nice. Also, one more point that occurred to me later is that the game doesn't give me a map. Despite its 9 meters squared, the area to explore is extremely spacious and I simply can't keep up with every detail for every place I have visited. Yes, looking for treasure is absolutely fun, but as soon as that field of treasures thinned out, there are only some treasures left, and then things start to get tedious. There were so many instances where I saw a treasure chest while questing, but I wasn't able to reach it because I didn't have the gear yet. So the game progresses and my dumb ass forgets about it for 2 hours and only remembers it by accident, because I was flying back to my hometown to get another chest I happened to remember. And no, granting me a map that just hangs in my bedroom that I cannot take with me and cannot interact with is no map at all, especially not when I get it after I beat the final boss. By the way, beating the final boss is not the end. After the credits, I enter a free roaming mode where the game gives me one last mission to collect everything I haven't found so far and to get every achievement the game has to offer. Which, I'm gonna be honest, is an absolute boon for completionists. There is not one single achievement you can miss just because you cleared the story. But I am not going out there to find the absolute last 5 treasures that could be somewhere in your big sandbox. Not even with my chest detector, sorry. And no, not even if you give me an upgrade that lets me jump across a whole area, which is absolutely awesome, by the way. I do appreciate the thought to let me become an overpowered monster at the end of the game, but it doesn't change the fact that I'm done chasing some remnants I've missed when the only way of finding them is to basically scour the whole world all over again. Okay, final word time. The game says, literally on the cover, that it focuses on exploration and puzzles, and it does an amazing job with the puzzle part. The puzzles are superb since they are just hard enough to make you wrap your brain around the mechanics for a minute, and also not easy enough to make you yawn because you've seen it all. However, when I hear exploration, I want a system that helps me explore properly. I could go ahead and write down some notes on where I have seen a treasure chest and where this or that puzzle is unsolved yet, but we are not living in the 80s and 90s anymore. Let me be clear about this, I demand a map that at least shows me where I am, where I have been to, and what I saw. Now about the fights. As much as I ranted about them, they can be completely ignored with a little practice and unmade as soon as you have the upgrades you need. But still, senseless fighting is a fair point of critique, and I'm not alone in this. There's a Supraland 2 in the works, and it seems like the creators know about my problem too. That's why they hired a combat designer for their sequel, and I really hope they integrate the fighting part more into the game, or at least make it a little deeper. And despite my criticism, Supraland is still worth every penny, and if you are the type of person who enjoys creative puzzle solving, then I would say, grab your wooden sword, dear Red. Fasten your electromagnetic belt and go forth into a fantastic exercise in game design. You won't regret spending some coin for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you will return for the next video as well. See ya!